Well, it was working when nothing else was. We
Yeah.
had the drought in 2007 and a financial crisis. And so all of our developer clients went away. But that little spray truck was still going out every day.
All right, welcome to episode 12 of Behind the Turf. On this episode, we've got a special Father's Day episode that we are calling Who is Nature's Turf? And so we've brought in Phil Sr., founder, my father, and we've got my brother, who's our managing partner, Adam Jackson. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to go ahead and kick it off, Dad. My hope is in this episode that we can just kind of shed a little light on, where Nature's Turf started, or Nature's, and how it evolved over the years. And I think you were there at the beginning. And so I guess to start off, how did it all start?
Well, it started in 1976, and my partner and I were working at a nursery together and selling plants. And a lot of people didn't want to buy the plants, didn't want to plant the plants. So they hired us to plant them. So we would go out at night and on our off days and plant plants for these people. And it got where it became a little bit of a business to us. We were busy with it almost every night and on our off days. And eventually we did enough that we put our notice in and started our own business. And that's where Nature's started.
Okay. And then at what point did it become Nature's Nursery? At what point did you open that retail garden center?
Well, we did pretty well and saved a few dollars and decided we'd go back in the retail business and found a little place in Fayetteville and went ahead and incorporated. And we couldn't get the name Nature's Way. It was taken. So we got the name Nature's
Nursery and Landscape.
Right. And that's where we started as far as a corporation, which was in January of 1977.
Adam, I think, we grew up in the green industry because Dad had the retail garden centers.
Yes.
Do you remember a specific time, though, where you kind of are like, I like this industry?
No, I don't know. I remember being there a lot, after school. It was very close to the school, the original location. And remember driving the forklift and playing hide and seek, stuff like that.
I know. It's
way before you could drive a forklift.
Yeah. Way before, yeah.
I also felt like it was when I guess you got this entrepreneur kind of spirit from Dad, but it's when you started your own. I mean, for a high schooler, you had a pretty successful mowing business.
I did.
Yeah, and he still owes me for that lawnmower.
Yeah, I did. Adam's Lawn Care. As soon as I turned 16, I decided that Dad was not paying me enough. So convinced him to buy me a lawnmower and a trailer.
Oh, I forgot the trailer.
Took some customers out from under him and started mowing grass and doing light landscape work. And it was pretty, I thought I was doing very, very well at that time in my life.
Yeah. And for me, it was being at the nursery, working with the clients. I don't even know if it was always the horticulture part that was always my favorite, but it was that customer service mentality that we learned from you of how to treat the customer.
That's right.
How to help somebody. Because often people would come in the nursery and they would see this huge greenhouse full of plants and they'd be totally lost, Mm-hmm. And you had taught us enough that we could go through there and show them what would work in the shade, what would work in the sun, what would not come back next year, those simple things. And it was really a great way for us to learn customer service. But Dad, at the beginning, what was, what are some of the challenges that you guys had in early days?
Money.
Yeah. It's tough, isn't it?
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were 24 years old and started with very little and just had to kind of grow and hit the bank a couple of times. But
I wanted you to, if you're comfortable, I'd love for you to tell the story of how a competitor in a very close market really was able to secure you guys for the future without having, otherwise than going from a bank, you guys were able to maintain the business.
Well, we had a friend in Jonesboro, Perry Walker, Walker Nursery Farms, and he knew we were opening in Fayetteville, and he knew we were young and struggling. And he called me one day and he said, Phil, bring your truck over here. I got something for you. Well, you never said no to Perry, so I scampered over there, and he said, back your truck up to the building. And he put one of 2 or 3 of everything that we would need to stock our store from his store. And I said, Perry, what I owe you? He says, don't worry about it. Pay me when you can. And he says, just go back and make a description of each thing and what it cost, and just get with me later. So about 6 months later, after the spring season, we saved enough money to pay Perry back. And Perry was a big part of why we were able to open that business and maintain that business in the early days, very early days.
Yeah, I just really love that story, because I just think that that's how, no matter what industry you're in, it can be very competitive. Lawn care, for instance, can be competitive, but that type of relationship and sharing information and just treating people like you would want to be treated, it's really special. And I think that's how Nature's, because of people like Perry, that was one of the reasons why Nature's was able to continue.
Absolutely. Perry was a good friend and a big part of our success.
So, Dad, I like it. One of the things I learned from you early on in the at the garden center was, obviously, even today, you can't always make people happy, but you were always worried about making it right. And I felt like this was a big mantra for you of it wasn't important for who was right, but it was about making it right. And I feel like that was something that I've carried into into Nature's Turf, which is, when we make mistakes, the first thing I think of is how do we make it right? And then we can go back to figuring out how we can prevent it from happening again if we are in the wrong.
Right. Well, it's important for customer relations to make things right and to make the decisions that you have to make. Sometimes they're not good decisions financially, but in the long term, it will come back and pay dividends to have that happy customer. And sometimes it was his fault, and sometimes it was our fault, but we took care of it.
Adam, you want to speak a little bit of how the company kind of evolved into the most recent decade or two, where we've turned the company from everything from starting installing plants to selling plants. We went back into with Nature's Landscape Services. You installed a lot of plants, to today where we're servicing lawns, home pest control.
Yeah. Well, when we were kids, it was just a nursery, so a retail garden center. I think at one point, maybe in the 80s, y'all made a small run at landscaping.
85.
But that didn't stick. And I think in 1995, roughly, the tree farm was started, which was a growing operation, which was a really big undertaking for you guys at that time. I'm trying to remember what year, maybe 98 with the landscaping. I remember a time.
It's 98.
I'm trying to remember how old we were, but I do remember a time, I think, we were not doing so well and having a sort of a family meeting about the financial situation. There was some pretty stiff retail competition.
Big.
Yeah.
I mean, the big box stores started coming in, and a lot of competition, and we had to find a way to increase revenues, and kind of went back to our roots and decided we'd start planting again, and
Which started in Whitewater Creek.
started.
There was a client that came in.
That's right.
A successful business owner, and I was working that summer, and he was buying some plants and wanted them installed, and Dad jumped in the truck and followed him down there, and then me and I trying to remember who, maybe Kurt and a few other guys and Dad, and we went down there for like 3 weeks. It was like the job never would end, and I think a light bulb kind of went off as far as installation could be a good path. And it really was, and turned into kind of a new phase, and we started doing grounds management in the early 2000s.
But then you can maybe speak on when we actually went to the airport and we figured out about lawn treatments.
Yeah, I think so I think it was probably 2004. Nature's Landscape was spun out of the original.
That's right.
Away from the farm. And we started growing maintenance, and then we went to a conference maybe 2006 or 7. I think it was 2006.
I think it was just a free marketing.
It was a free conference, for
in a magazine,
a lawn care software. Yeah,
but we didn't know that at the time. We thought it was just a marketing, like how to learn how to market your green industry business.
Yeah, and we saw some individuals there from the north side of Atlanta that were running really, really large lawn care operations. Really beyond what anything I think we had ever imagined at that time. And so, we ended up acquiring a gentleman. We were subcontracting a very small business out of Henry County, and that's kind of how we jumped into it. And that was March of 2007, and Philip and I basically drew that up on a napkin with Brian. It's Brian Arnold. He's a great guy at Wings and Things in Fayetteville. Which is kind of crazy because I was probably 22 or 3.
Yeah.
And it felt like bigger decisions than we needed to be making at that time.
And then we came to Dad with this crazy idea, this should be the next phase of Nature's.
Yeah.
And we just kind of built on that over the last 2 decades, I guess, almost.
But we didn't do much with it initially,
Yeah, that's true.
We were still really heavy, a diversified landscape company.
A lot of distractions at the beginning.
A lot of distractions until 2008 happened.
Right, and then that allowed us to really spend more time on it because there was less landscape work with less construction going on.
But we almost went broke again in 2008. Yeah. And we were all sitting at not McAllister's, what was the place in Fayetteville? Charlie's. You remember that?
Yeah.
And Dad's looking at us and he's like, guys, I don't know. We may not make it. And we're just like, okay, we might need to go get an MBA or something or go back to school.
Yeah.
So,
but Dad, that's one of the things I've learned, and I wasn't there aware through all the entire history of Nature's, but I remember those meetings or whatever. And, just the confidence you had and like, we might not make it, but we'll figure out something else, And like, I think that's such somebody that's sitting at home right now who might have started their own business and might not be going the way they want it to go. You just never know where your business might pivot, Yeah. And I think that's a special thing that you taught me. And even now that me and Adam are running the business, just the two of us now, like we've definitely had some really challenging experiences where we're just like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And it was always kind of your personality and the way you reacted to those difficult times. It reminds me of like, what? If this doesn't work out, we'll figure out the next chapter.
Mm-hmm. It's a mentality.
Yeah.
For sure. I think
it's not scared to take a risk,
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of risks taken. And it was a tough time, but we pulled out of it, and the turf care got off to a great start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was working when nothing else was. We had the drought in 2007 and a financial crisis. And so all of our developer clients went away. But that little spray truck was still going out every day.
Yeah. And we just got focused, and we focused the business. And then shortly after that, we, after 08, I guess it was probably 2012 or so.
12 or 13.
Yeah, we rebranded for the community to better understand what we did, which is Nature's Turf. And
really focused on that.
Yeah, and that's allowed us to create the business that Nature's Nursery has become, or Nature's Way, I guess. It's what has evolved over these years from the very beginnings where you were putting a holly in the ground, to today. Before we wrap it up, though, I did want to talk about, we've recently, the next evolution of Nature's has actually already happened, and it's something you probably never imagined when you were selling probably some insecticides in the retail stores. Right. But we're doing home pest control, you know, and
right.
we're in our 3rd year of it. And it's really been such an awesome, challenging experience, I think, for me and you, Adam, and a time for us to go back to Dad and lean on him and get his advice on challenging experiences he's had and get his opinion. But I'm looking forward to the future of the home pest control mixed in with the lawn care.
Yeah, I am too, and it's so far going very well. A lot of people told us not to do it this way, that it should be a separate company, a separate brand, and we feel like it easily can be, which we're already doing, and should be done this way in the Georgia market, just like it's done in other markets like Florida. So it's off to a great start. It's already 10% of our business in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So it's growing very, very quickly.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap it up, you know, Deb, we just really appreciate you coming in, kind of telling the history of Nature Surf at the beginning. Adam, appreciate you willing to jump in here.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's fascinating. I hope people find it somewhat fascinating. It's kind of where we started and where we are today. And so we appreciate everything you've done at the beginning to help us get here.
My pleasure, and it's just to say this, it's really great when you're able to see your sons come into the business and take it to places that you never thought were possible. And you guys done a great job.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We hope everybody out there has an awesome Father's Day, and we hope you'll join us for episode 13.